What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Ecommerce Growth Map Podcast with your host, Frank Kenny, Head of Growth and CEO here at Line Media. And in today's episode of the podcast, we're going to talk about how do you convert more customers from your ads. Everybody obsesses over ads. Like, we need to run this ads. We need to do this campaign, right? We need to do this, and this. All of that is very important, right? But see, a lot of time what I've seen is that a lot of effort are wasted on ads, right? And people don't necessarily fix the thing that comes after the ad, which is the landing page, right? Because when you look at a funnel, right, you first have the ads, right? And the goal of an ad is to get somebody to click on the ad to go to your landing page, right? The goal of the landing page is to convert somebody to purchase your product, right? You can think as a landing page as a salesperson, right? As a salesman. His purpose is to essentially to persuade you to purchase the product, right? There has to be a trust factor into that, right? There has to be a believability factor into that, meaning what you say about the product, they believe what you say that the product is going to do for them, right? And like all of those elements needs to be included within the landing page, right? But if we're spending so much time on the ads and never fix what the landing page is, we're essentially kind of missing the piece of the puzzle, right? Because Meta, if you ever touch on Meta or Google, can only do so much, right? They can only do so much, right? And if you feel yourself, you're stuck that you're testing multiple ads, you're doing all you need to do within like the campaign. Like you have the right campaign structure, you have the right audience that you're testing, you have the right ads, you're constantly testing ad, but like you're still not hitting the target. You need to look at the next piece, at the next step of the funnel, which is the landing page, right? And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today, right? We're going to talk about ways in which strategies in which we use to convert customers, right? And what I'll do is I'll go under the hood, essentially, kind of show you guys our strategy, right? Because yes, it's important. As important as the ad is, it can only do so much, right? Again, the goal of the ad is to get somebody intrigued enough to click on the ad, then to go to the landing page. And the goal of the landing page is to persuade the individual to purchase the product, right? And so we've been spending a lot of time testing different landing page structures, right? Because again, we've seen that everybody's just focusing on the ads, right? Everybody's focusing on what is the next, like Facebook trick, tactic, that like et cetera, right? All of that again is important, but like we have to focus on what actually converts the customer again, which is the landing page. And so there's three things that we've been testing in regards to landing page, right? Something that we call a listicle, right? So another thing that we call an advertorial, and then the sales page, right? And I explained all three of those, and I give you guys an example of what we're actually testing for some of our clients. A listicle is, in a sense, it's structured as a blog format. Again, I'll show you an example. It's structured as a blog format, right? It's supposed to provide enough information to the consumer, to the customer, that then the customer believes what the product is and the problem that the product is solving, and it has like trust factor in it that then the customer can then make the deciding decision to purchase the product, right? Because typically what happens in e-commerce is that as soon as we run the ad, as soon as the customer clicks on the ad, people usually tell them to the homepage, which, as you know or you may not know, but the homepage converts at less than 1%, right? Again, let me say that again. When you send traffic to the homepage, it converts at less than 1%, right? The other thing that the other place where people send traffic to is product display page. Product display page, right? I mean, that's better than the homepage, but it can only do so much for you, right? And the conversion rate on that is still going to be very low, right? And a lot of the reason why people don't purchase product is because they don't believe what your claim is. They don't believe that what you say that your product can do to your customer would actually, can actually do that. People don't believe that. And so what then you need to do is essentially like bridge that trust gap, right? And how do we do that? It's like providing more information to customers, right? And so again, I'm going to jump on my screen right now and show you guys what we do and what we're testing. So the first thing that I talked about is the listicle page, right? So this is essentially like a wellness brand, one of our clients that we work with. And so this is the design of a listicle page, how we structure it, right? So you see over here how you start with the essentially like the hero section. We claim your intimate pleasure with this breakthrough for women over 40, right? So we make a big claim over here at the essentially like for the headline, right? And you can see, boom, the next thing that we have over here is like a statement by a doctor, right? That's a trust factor that as an individual sees that, oh, a doctor is speaking about this product, right? So it immediately increases the trust factor between the product and the consumer. Right? And you see the next thing that you have there is a testimonial from an individual about what the product did for them. Right? So already we start with big claim, and then we have a doctor making a claim about the product, right? And then we have a testimonial by a customer, right? And so already there's a lot of things that we've already answered from the customer, or that the customer may be thinking. Right? Rebuttals, essentially. We've already answered a lot of those, right? And so as you go down, there's like just even more information about the product. It delivers 6 benefits in one product. Boom. You'll feel the difference immediately. Boom. It's engineered specifically for women. Boom. We know who our target customer is, right? It contains all the premium natural ingredients. Boom. And then right below that, obviously, we provide the information to the claim that we're making over there. And then the next one is health expert and satisfied customer recommended. Boom. And then you see how we have all these like we have like Women's Health magazine, we have Glamour, and we also have like Well Plus Goods. So these are additional trust factors that we're borrowing from well-known publication and magazine, that we're just essentially borrowing that and adding it to our brand and to our landing page. And so when the consumer sees that, it further increases the trust factor between, again, what our claim is, what we say about the product, and what the product can do for them, right? So that's in addition to what these do, right? It feels amazing. Boom. Why does it feel amazing? Testimonial from a customer, right? Delighted customers are given it a 4.7 rating. Okay, that's pretty good, right? And then we have some of those reviews over here. You'll discover your essential self, right? So just kind of like more attributes of the product, right? And it just goes on and on. We're just like making claims, and then we give things to essentially like back up that claim, right? So that's what we're doing over here. And guys, essentially that's what the listicle is, right? And then finally, once we've provided enough information, right, that's gonna bridge the trust gap, and for people to believe what the product is in the brand, then we have an offer for them at the very last section of the page. See, now a lot of people, when we build this for clients, they will see, doesn't the offer needs to be at the very front of the page? Don't we need to have a call to action at the front of the page? Typically, yes, but here's the thing though. The goal is we want the customer to consume the information. Because if they don't consume the information, then we don't give them enough information to bridge that trust gap, right? So it's very important that we don't just come out blazing guns like buy my product, like typical landing pages or like product display pages do. No, we want to provide them with the information about our product. So we want them to read and engage with the content. And finally, once they've read and engaged with the content, then at the very last bottom, we make them an offer. Think about as a traditional sales environment, right? So a good salesperson knows just not to go out and then boom, this is what you need, da 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 da. No, they want to educate the customer about the product, right? And then they want to give some form of proof of how the product can work for them. And so this is essentially what we're trying to do here in this specific listicle page. And then only then, when we feel like the customer believes the product, right, and we've built that trust gap, then we can go ahead and make the offer. So that's what you see over here, right? So this is the listicle page, right? And I'll say this: there's 2 additional pages that we've tested, and we seen that the listicle page beats all of them, right? So let me go and show you the split test of what we do, right? So we're gonna go into a client's testing account, essentially. This is a Shopify account, and we'll try to block out as much information that doesn't reveal too much information about the brand. But the main thing that we want you guys to look at is essentially like the tests that we're doing, right? So as you can see over here on the screen, over here, we have 3 tests essentially that we conducted. for the specific brand, right? So we had the control. That was the original page that the client was running, right? And so then we came in and we built 3 additional essential pages that we were then testing, right? So first of all, we tested the control, which was the original page that the customer was sending traffic to, and then we built the listicle page, right? And then there was also another landing page which the customer had, in which we also wanted to test that. So as you can see here, so we have we have the control group right here, as you can see here, and then we also have the listicle, which goes to a product display page, right? So what I just showed you right here, right? So once they click on this, they're gonna go to a product display page. Right, so they're gonna go to this product display page over here. So that's essentially what that is. Let me just go back real quick. And then let me go back to the test. Preceding that, we have the listicle to a landing page. I don't have the landing page that they were sending traffic to, but we essentially say, okay, we're gonna test sending people to this listicle page, the landing page that the client initially had, and then after they went listicle, landing page, and then product display page. So that was essentially like the funnel and the steps that they had to take, right? So we tested all 3 of those, and you can see that. First, we'll look at the conversion rate. So this one had a 1.54 conversion rate, which is essentially the listicle to the landing page, right? Now, you may think that, oh, that's like really good. Obviously, that's the winner. But the thing with that is that when you look at the visitors, the people that have visited that page, and when you look at the visitors to the other one, which is the listicle to the product display page, then you can see obviously this one has like almost double of what this test over here had, right? And so obviously as we look at like the revenue that was generated from this listicle page over here, we can see that obviously this one is making a lot more money than like the other ones, right? And so this one had a 1.28 conversion rate. The control group had a 1.05 conversion rate. And you can see this one over here which is the listicle to the landing page, had a 1.45 conversion rate, right? This is a winner to us because this is the one that's making more money, right? Again, the biggest reason because like it's received more traffic, right? So that's the first test that we initially had, right? So this essentially just told us that the listicle is better than the control group. And so the next test that we did then is going to be the listicle versus the advertorial page. And I'm gonna show you what the advertorial page is here in just a second. So this is the advertorial page. The goal of an advertorial page is essentially to kind of tell a story, right? Similar in a way to the listicle, but this one is more in a story format style, right? So we have a big claim over here. Here's why women over 40 are reclaiming their intimate pleasure with this revolutionary formula, right? And then we go on to give a review from one of the customers, right? And then when you go below that, then we start telling a story, right? How 40s women beyond 40s are essentially like having issue with like intimacy because of like menopause and other things that are just happening, right? We tell the story and then we give the solution over here. So you can kind of see now how like the format of this one is different than the listicle page, right? So here's the listicle page again. Here is the advertorial page. This is the structure for this. So now with this one, we have a lot more like numbers to kind of to tell the story. So like as we're telling the story, we need to give supporting evidence as for the story that we're telling, right? And we're using numbers in this specific case to essentially support what we're telling in the story, right? So you can see that over here. And then over here as well, we can see that, hey, this is released versus other products. And we have a comparison chart to essentially show why our products is better than essentially like the competition, right? So this is an advertorial page. Now, this was the next thing that we tested. And let me show you the data for that. So now if I go back over here, I'm going to go back to A/B Convert. A/B Convert is the tool that we use to essentially do our tests, right? So over here, we're going to see the advertorial test that we ran. And so now, again, the test is going to be between the listicle and the advertorial. As I already mentioned to you guys, the listicle essentially outperformed all the other pages, right? But I just want to show you the data for that, right? So this is the listicle this is the test that we ran. We have the listicle and then we have the advertorial. Now you can see that the traffic was very close in terms of like being about like the same amount of traffic that was sent to each site, to each page. But when you look at the conversion rate, which is like one of the most important things that we care about here, we see that the listicle has a 1.60, which is pretty good. And then we see that advertorial has a 1.45. Clearly, the listicle is the winner, right? As again, I mentioned on an e-commerce website, right? Or even just like a product display page, the conversion rate is usually below a 1%. And I have multiple data just to show you that. It's below a 1%, right? So again, here's the data over here, and here's the kind of like the revenue for that. Again, this is this smaller client, a smaller test that we were running for them. But again, the data doesn't lie. Listicle outperforms the advertorial page, right? So the next phase of the next thing that we tested was a sales page, right? I'm gonna show you what the sales page looks like. So we tested the listicle, we tested the advertorial. The next thing that we're gonna test is the sales page, and this is what a sales page is. And the goal of the sales page is essentially just to convert people, right? And the biggest difference, the biggest thing that you wanna do is like, if you're sending traffic to a sales page, that traffic needs to be hot, meaning that this traffic, the people that you're sending to that sales page already knows about the brand, already knows about the product to a large extent, right? And so it makes it easier to convert them using the sales page. But if it's cold traffic, it's typically not going to convert as well, because what you're trying to do is like you're trying to like ask those people to buy my product without giving them enough information to essentially, the information for them to make the decision to purchase the product. So there is still a trust factor that is not, that hasn't been bridged yet between the consumer and the brand or the product, right? And the sale page doesn't necessarily do that as well as the listicle page does, right? And so that's why when you look at the data between the sales page and the listicle, let me pull that up over here, we see that the listicle clearly is still the winner. So we have the data right here, as you can see. Let this load. Okay, so this is low. So you can see, okay, cool. We have the sales page and we have the listicle, right? So we want to get down over here to the bottom. We can see that, okay, listicle 1.7 conversion rate. Sales page 1.54 conversion rate. So if you actually look at the data between the sales page and the advertorial, the sales page actually does convert better, but nonetheless, the fact still remains the same. The listicle is going to outperform everything, because what the listicle does, again, it bridges the gap, it bridges the trust gap between the customer who's never heard about your brand nor your product before, right? And so the goal of that listicle is to provide them with enough information so that then they can go ahead and make the decision to buy, right? And there's no other style of landing page that does that as well as a listicle page, right? And so now when you're testing, you're sending traffic to your website and consumers are not purchasing your product, it's not because you have a bad product or anything like that, because your product might be too expensive, although that might be some of the reason, but a lot of the reason is because the consumer, if they're cold and they've never heard about your brand before, they just have a trust issue in the sense that, many people out there making claims. Your competitors are making claims about the product, what they're doing for them, right? You got to be able to, your listicle page has to be able to bridge the gap, or wherever you are sending that traffic to, they have to be able to bridge the trust gap, right? And what we find is that the listicle page does that extremely well, as you can see that with the test and with the data that I've presented over here, right? So the biggest thing that you essentially want to extract, guys, out of this podcast episode is that you don't want to spend just all of your energy and time and resources on running ads or spending even more money on ads and testing different campaign structure, et cetera. All of that is important, and that's a piece of the puzzle, right? You have to look at the next phase of okay, if this is not working as well as I wanted to, what else can I look at, right? And the thing that you have to think about is, okay, it seems to be a trust issue between the consumer and the brand or the product, right? And as I've just laid out over here in this podcast episode is that you need to be able to bridge that gap. And how we're doing that is using a listicle page, right? So we're bridging the gap between the consumer and the product and the brand using a listicle page by providing them with enough information so that they feel that they can trust the brand and be able to make the decision to purchase the product, guys. So hopefully this is making sense, right? Awesome, guys. I think this is going to conclude it for this podcast episode. Hopefully this is super helpful for you guys in terms of like, don't just be spending all your energy and time on like just like testing ads. All that's important. Like you have to know where also allocate like your resources, guys. It's not just presented in this podcast episode. It's you need to be spending a little more time on testing like different landing pages, right? Awesome, guys. Last thing that I'm gonna do over here, guys. So obviously, we're an advertising agency, mainly focusing on DTC, right? So if this is super helpful to you and this is something that you guys want to essentially kind of like test out, right? And you guys want to like hire us to essentially like build these different pages for you guys. You guys can go to our website at lionmediaad.com and fill out a contact us page. What we'll even do for you guys is offer to essentially to build one of these pages for free for you guys, just to initially test that, right? And only then when it starts working, you start to convert more data. Or let's just say this, we guarantee to outperform your current landing page, whether that's you're sending home to you're sending traffic to like a home page or a product display page. We guarantee that we can increase your conversion rate, or else you don't pay essentially for like the service that we just did for you guys, right? So again, that's the offer that we're essentially like presenting. All you have to do is go to lionmediaad.com, fill out the contact us page, and then one of our team is going to reach out to you and essentially like set this up, guys. If you guys have any question, if you're watching this on YouTube, leave them down in the comment section below, and then we'll be sure to get to it. See you guys in the next episode. Peace.